depressed yet? That was heavy. That was a very, very heavy movie. I was not prepared for that level of heaviness. So I'm laughing because, man, I think I need to go home and watch Philadelphia to cheer myself up. I mean, Jesus Christ. Okay, so Last Flag Flying. So this is one of those movies where I feel the advertising, what little advertising there was, didn't quite represent the film that was delivered. So if you don't know, in this movie, Steve Carell, Bryan Cranston, and Lawrence Fishburne play old army buddies from Vietnam. Steve Carell's son was a Marine who was killed in an action, and he goes and gets Lawrence Fishburne and Bryan Cranston, his two old army buddies, to kind of go with him to the funeral, and through happenstance decides he doesn't want his son buried in Arlington. He wants him buried back home. So it's this thing of them reconnecting, driving to the funeral, and then the misadventures kind of coming back. Now, obviously, with a setup like that, you know this is going to be a film with more of a gut punch than your standard screwball road trip comedy. You know that going in. That is a given, obviously, just with the setup. So you're prepared for that. But the way the trailers kind of were cut together and presented, they made it look like it was going to be a little bit more of a comedy, a film. Yes, it's a sad thing, but they're, traveling together. These old buddies reconnect, and they rediscover their youth, and they act a little crazy, and they rediscover the beauty of life, and of course you've got Bryan Cranston, who's the stodgy, or not the stodgy. He's the guy who refuses to act his age, and he's still chasing the ladies and making sex jokes. And Lawrence Fishburne's the old party guy who now has become all serious and a priest, and of course he's gonna break out of that and go all crazy again. And Steve Carell is the normal guy at the center of it, who's always kind of the quiet one. And they don't give you this impression it's going to be like something, it's not going to be a National Lampoon movie, but they give you the impression that it's going to be a little bit more lighthearted. A heavy topic that at the end of the day you leave with this kind of yay life, yay friends, bad things happen, but we have friends to get us through it, and that kind of thing. That is not the movie that you get. This movie is heavy. It is heavy, like with a capital H. It is like trying to pick up The Big Show heavy. Kudos to anybody out there who gets that reference. I mean, man, it is harsh. It is a gut punch, and a repeated gut punch. Now, let me state that the movie is good. The movie's very good. The movie is, incredibly good. But where I'm just having a little trouble right now is that usually for a film like this, you prepare yourself to go see it. When I watch Philadelphia, or I'm trying to think of another really heavy movie. Philadelphia is the only one that's coming to my mind right now. But you watch a heavy movie, you mentally prepare yourself for it a bit. You know you're going to cry. You know it's going to be heavy. But you're like, you know what? I'm geared up. I'm ready for this. When it just kind of hits you out of nowhere, it's pretty damn, man. You feel like the main character. Maybe that's why they did it. Maybe that's why they did the advertising the way they did, so that you kind of feel like the main character, like you are. It's just a thing you get numb to. So there's a lot of good things in this movie. First and foremost, one of the things I like about this movie, once you get past the heaviness, is this is a movie. I like these kind of movies in that I like movies that could almost be plays. The drama here, the stakes here are all personal. They're character driven. It's not a thing with any kind of big, it's not getting up on its soapbox. I think it presents both sides of issues in a fairly even-handed way. But it's more about somebody trying to deal with extreme trauma, both from the present and the past. There's this whole backstory that they got in some trouble when they were all in Vietnam, and somebody ended up dead, and it's this whole thing. Kind of felt like the subplot of that got in the way a little bit, in my opinion. I think I don't know if they necessarily needed it. It was good, but it was more like we need this subplot to just give you another gut punch, So I am happy, and then kind of that breakdown I gave a second ago about what the trailer kind of presented it in. I'm glad that the characters were not quite as cookie cutter as the comedy I thought I was going to had them portrayed as. Bryan Cranston he's kind of the show stealer. Steve Carell's the guy who loses his son, but Bryan Cranston's the guy with the most screen time and the most lines. He's doing the most. And what's weird is that the main relationship that is explored is Bryan Cranston and Lawrence Fishburne, the former party guy who became a priest and the guy who's drinking all of his trauma away. Steve Carell always feels like he's kind of on an island. He has very few scenes in the early goings of the film, and it's a long film, or it feels like a long film anyway. And so much of his scenes are, just him. Maybe a couple lines here and there filling in, but a lot of the interaction is between Fishburne and Cranston. And they do a really good job. I mean, they have some really good scenes and some really good dialogue, and and later on, Steve Carell does get into it more. But it did feel like he was kind of separate from it. And that's not a negative critique, that is simply an observation. But I must say, I think Steve Carell's, I said this, I think, during the Battle of the Sexes review, and it holds true here as well. Steve Carell's a very underrated actor. He had a lot of emotional heavy lifting, and like I said, he didn't have a whole lot of lines to do it in. So he had to do a lot of it had to be a lot through his reaction or the way he delivered the very short lines he had, and you get a lot out of his performance. It's a pretty damn, like, your heart breaks for him the minute you meet him, and then it just keeps splitting throughout the movie. It's just it's a harsh one. Cranston's great. Fishburne's great. A big shout out. I couldn't catch his name in the closing credits. Small cast. The other major cast member is, as they're taking Steve Carell's son back to New Hampshire, I think is where they were burying him. They're being escorted by his army buddy, his Marine buddy. Who feels guilty about the death, and that was his best friend and all that. So you've got these three old guys, through a lot of it, and kind of this young guy interjected into it. So old generation Marine and current generation Marine. And this young man, whose, again, name escapes me. The character's name was Worthington, so I'm going to call him Worthington. Worthington, he did a really nice job. He did a really, really good acting job in this. Like, he felt real. You know, like he felt like a real person delivering real dialogue, you know, real words. He didn't feel like an actor. And I mean that in the best possible way. That it wasn't putting on a performance. Like, Bryan Cranston is good, but you get the feeling, you know, the way his character is written, you know, he's putting on a character. Lawrence Fishburne, you know, of course, very good. But again, the way his character is written, he's definitely playing a character here. And it doesn't help that we know these actors from other things. They're very famous for other roles. So we know that any part they're playing, you know, the ghost of other roles are always kind of over them. So this young man, who I don't know what else he's been in, if he's been in anything else, but this young man had the benefit of, since we don't know him, like, it would not surprise me if I found out they went out and got an actual Marine to play that part. And he was very good. Very, very good. And especially in scenes where he's acting with Lawrence Fishburne and Bryan Cranston and Steve Carell. I mean, that's a young guy thrown into quite a few decades of acting experience, and that's got to be intimidating. He held his own, and he did a good job. So I hope that this young man ends up in some other things, because I think he did a really, really nice job, and you got to give him the thumbs up for that. There's not too much to say about this one. The only thing I didn't like, aside from just, you know, kind of being blindsided by the the heavy subject matter there. So the film takes place in 2003. Cool, you know, no problem. But there's some things that just kind of annoyed me. Like, the very first thing they said, you know, the very first thing that happens is, the title card comes up and all that, and then it says, you know, at the bottom it says 2003. And it's like, I don't think you needed to come out and tell us that. I think we could have, from the pop culture references, the newscasts they were showing, and all that, you didn't need to tell us that. I think you could have just let the film be. You don't need to, like, tell us, you know, that. And there's a scene, and I know that they're supposed to be older guys, all right? I know that it's one of those, you know, older guys things. But there's this scene, like, towards the middle of the film where, like, they are completely wowed by cell phones. You know, like they've never seen one before. And it's 2003, and yes, you know, back then you couldn't record a review on your phone like I'm doing right now. But, you know, people were pretty hip that cell phones were around and how to use them. I mean, you know, I find it hard to believe, even, you know, I can understand one character being like that, but all three of them being like, oh, the magic tablet. I mean, it's one of those things where you know, I don't know, as I get older and people are making movies and TV shows about time periods in which I grew up or I was alive, you know, finding the inaccuracies becomes bigger and bigger. It's like, and not even something you're looking for, it's like, that, come on. I mean, they would have known about cell phones. But yeah, so this is a good movie. But man alive, is it harsh, and is it a downer? I mean, I don't say that, like, again, it's not a knock against it. They handle heavy subject matter, and they do it well. But it's one of those things where, again, one, the reason I'm having so much trouble is, like, the advertising did not lead me to believe that's what I was walking into. And two, I'm sitting there thinking, and they put this in worldwide release the day before Thanksgiving? This is a great Thanksgiving film. Let's all go watch the guy be sad over his dead son. I mean, yay! Yay, Thanksgiving! It's like, oh, fuck me! I mean, I know they put it out, earlier. It was actually released November 3rd, according to Elizabeth, who saw the film with me, and that it was a limited release, so they can get it out in time and have it be eligible for Oscar contention. But still, that means the wider release was still scheduled for the day before Thanksgiving. Now, to be fair, I don't know when I'd release this movie. This is a film, like, I don't know when a good time for this one is. I don't know when you're in the mood to, yay, let's go see that really depressing film. But, sometimes you want to go see a depressing film, honestly. But yeah, so that kind of shocked me, too. It was like, this is not a, all this makes me want to do is go home and call my dad. That's what this makes me want to do. Which, again, not a bad thing. Again, I'm giving this movie the shit a bit, but I want to make it clear. It's a good movie, and it handles some really, really traumatic subject matter in a really good way. And the actors all, they're giving some great performances in there. So this is one that, I guess I will say this is the only other thing, and this is not a knock, it's just kind of thing I noticed. This portrays soldiers as soldiers are, real people, especially ones who were drafted as they would have been in Vietnam, that these were not, hard and fast military guys. They were guys who, came from different walks of life. They didn't want to be there. They were, they were pretty rough and tumble, and it paints them in a pretty realistic light, especially when they're talking about the things they did, in Nam, so you're getting, if you go to this film thinking that it's nothing but a flag waving, yay us, and yay, we were soldiers and we did our job, and I mean, there is that pride. They have the pride in there. But they also bring up that they were pissed that they were there. They were pissed that so many of their friends died. I think that's actually, that this turns into praise for the film, because I think it presents everything in an even light. They were proud of what they did. They were proud of their service, but at the same time, it was like, they asked the question a lot, because they had drawn parallels between Vietnam and the war on terror. That whole kind of, what did we do it for? What was all for when it's all said and done? They told us back in Vietnam, back when they drafted us into Nam, that if we didn't go there and fight, that the communists were going to come to Miami Beach, and obviously that never happened. And they say that, and the Wentworth and the soldier says, well, I guess it worked. So it doesn't just do the flag waving and not offer the other side. So, but I think some people in the audience were not too pleased with that. I saw a couple people get up and leave. And I during a particularly raunchy scene where the guys are recounting their time at the whorehouse. So be aware, if you're going for this one, that it portrays men as men are. So be aware of that. It's a good movie. I think it deserves a lot of praise, and I hope it finds an audience just for the good performances and the tight screenplay. But I'm gonna tell you, you make sure you know what you're walking into with it. Make sure that you are prepared for the situation. Okay, so that is my advice to you. Good movie, but be aware, and if you do, bring Kleenex. You're gonna fucking need it. All right, so tomorrow is Thanksgiving, so I want to wish everyone who's viewing this either on Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving or whatever, a happy Thanksgiving. I have at least one more movie I'm planning for my week off. So, I hope they haven't misrepresented this one in the trailer. I don't think they have, but if I go and see this next one and it's freaking depressing, I'm gonna be really upset. I need some cheer now to get me out of this. So, but one more to go. So until next time, have a happy Thanksgiving, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.